It's a little bit tough doing this video because I have to fix my hair. Now, why is my hair messed up? All right, let's see how this goes. That's right, I have the VR hair because we are talking about this, the Oculus Quest. This particular unit was provided to me by Qualcomm. They wanted me to check this stuff out because the Qualcomm processor in here is what powers this standalone VR headset. That's right, there's no wires, no nothing, it just goes right onto your head like this. I'm about to mess up my hair once again. But once you put it on, the sensors realize that you have the VR headset on. It's looking for the play area, which I have my entire middle portion of my office ready for. And that's how I've been playing for the past week or two. The controllers for the Oculus Quest are a little bit updated. These are the same controllers that you would get on the Rift S right now, where the sensors are actually above the controller rather than beneath them the way that they were for the previous generation. You still get your standard button layout, a couple of analog sticks, a couple of buttons over on the side, and two different types of triggers. One of them is on the front, kind of like a gun trigger, and then the other one is a grip trigger that allows you to actually grip things inside of the virtual world if the game asks you to. Okay, so let's talk about some specs real quick. There are obviously some cameras on this, and you'll notice that I wasn't setting up any... Oh, it's still playing, isn't it? The headband, both over and around the temples, is a little bit more rigid this time when you compare it to other ones like the Oculus Go. It does get a little bit warm when it's on your face, but this thing is light enough so that it's not really pulling me forward a whole lot when I'm actually playing any VR content. It does get quite warm, like I said, though, so there have been some, let's just say, sweat rings around my eyes once I'm done playing. And then you have some buttons and ports around the actual body itself. There is a USB-C port so that you can charge this thing up in about a couple of hours, and you get a couple of hours worth of battery life depending on what kind of content you're viewing. Underneath the surface you get 64 gigabytes of onboard storage as well as the Snapdragon 835. Now, I really wonder what it would be like having the newest Snapdragon processor on here, the Snapdragon 855 Plus perhaps. That way you're able to get some more powerful games on here, because that is the crux of this entire experience, is the library that Oculus provides. The Oculus Quest actually finds a happy medium when it comes to VR content. You can of course load up things like Netflix and YouTube and act like you're in the comfort of your living room when you're probably in the comfort of your living room when you're using this headset. And then all of the different games that you are able to play on the Quest are more or less mobile VR games that have been adapted for this standalone, more powerful headset, so you don't need to have a smartphone in front of your face. There are some games that are on proper big VR headsets that are tethered to big computers, however, that you can play on here, and one of them is Beat Saber, like I said. There are a couple of other ones that I have been playing, and they are really, really fun. And to be honest, there aren't too many games in the library right now, but if you are into particular, let's say, rhythm or physical games like Creed, for example, well, you can have a great time with this with no latency issues, and the controllers work really well, and honestly, the gaming experience is really fun if you're looking for that type of experience. And the best part is there's very little setup. You just got to get this thing fitted on your head. The motion sensors will allow you to map out your own play area, and it will be able to detect via that mapping where the boundaries are. And it will easily tell you where the boundary is via a blue or red grid. If it's red, you're actually moving out of the boundary. And what I like about the experience on the Oculus Quest is that when you do get out of the boundary, you can actually see a monochrome version of the world around you. So in a way, you don't have to take the headset off during times when you're transitioning from, let's say, play to doing something else really quick, like hitting record on a camera in order to record yourself using this thing. Speaking of showing off your gameplay, you are able to cast what the Oculus Quest is viewing, or what you're viewing through it, to a smartphone, which then can be broadcasted to a Chromecast. Gaming and video applications are fairly obvious when it comes to headsets like this, and the Oculus Quest is up there amongst the best of them. However, I'm interested in virtual reality for sort of unorthodox applications. Here's one example. I downloaded a game called Guided Tai Chi. It's this whole idea that you come into a virtual world and you can actually find a way of doing something that you wouldn't normally do in the real world. In this case, it's meditation or Tai Chi or something to that effect. This is like the virtual reality version of a guided audio meditation. Did I feel relaxed after it? That's still something I have to figure out a little bit later as I play the game more. After all, I was actually kind of stressed out trying to make sure I was doing the movements correctly and keeping my hands in those bubbles. Which brings me to this analogy that I've had in mind ever since I put on this headset and played Beat Saber for like 2 full hours because I drained the battery completely. When I was a kid, I played a lot of Dance Dance Revolution. I know, stereotypes abound, but I used one of those mats that connected to the controller port in the PS2, and I played it a lot as a means of getting a little bit of exercise every day, but at the same time I just thought it was fun. I really enjoy rhythm games like that, and I felt the same way with Beat Saber. The problem with that mat is that you can only use it for very specific purposes. Sure, you could probably use it for other types of games, but for the most part it was a DDR thing, directional pad that you used, and it made you get physical, and I really think that the Oculus Quest is sort of our new age version of that. I'm not saying that this is solely a Beat Saber machine, but for some people that might actually be what this is, because Beat Saber is such a popular game that this is a great way of getting into it without having to buy a big old computer, tether yourself to it, or even fuss a whole lot with things like sensors. So I find myself coming back to the Oculus Quest when I want to have those specific experiences, to play those specific games. And that's fine, because I actually want to play Beat Saber and Racket NX a whole lot. Just as a way of keeping the analogy going, if you wanted to have the full Dance Dance Revolution experience, well, you would get one of those huge machines that they have in the arcades with the lights and all of the big speakers and the actual like metal mats and all that stuff. Similarly, with the Oculus Quest, if you wanted to actually play full-size, let's say, VR games, then you would need to get something that tethers you to a big computer. Both the cost and the maintenance involved go up exponentially. So no, I don't think that the Oculus Quest is actually breaking any new ground, at least not yet. It does have a more powerful processor than the Oculus Go had, but it's not powerful enough to actually play some of the games that some of you out there may actually want to load onto here, like Skyrim VR. But hopefully developers will find ways of adapting their titles to the processors that we know and love from Qualcomm, including the 855 Plus, which was just recently announced and is clearly a processor made for gaming experiences. Once we can figure out a standalone headset that is not tethered to anything, but it can play all of those AAA titles, man, we're gonna have a great time in virtual reality. In any case, I want to know what you guys think about the Oculus Quest. Let me know if you have any Oculus products in general. Maybe you're using a Rift S with a big computer, a big desktop powerful computer, or you have the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Go and you're doing some of those standalone experiences. What are your high scores in Beat Saber also? In any case, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Welcome if you're new here. We're so close to 100,000 subscribers, and as I leave for another destination coming up pretty soon, I hope that we can all celebrate it while I'm abroad. There are a lot of things coming up and I'm excited to share all of it with you. But yeah, drop some likes on these videos as well. Get into the comment sections like I said before, and until my next video, I would just remind you to enjoy your tea, everybody.